that divorce, that you suddenly saying, that's it, I'm going off on my own.
It wasn't Artie's fault. After we did The Graduate, Mike Nichols, who was the director of The Graduate, said, I'd like you both to be in my next movie, which is Catch-22.
Right.
So we were thrilled. The next summer, he's called me up and he said, we wrote the screenplay and it's so long that we have to cut out parts, and we cut out your character.
Nice. Great.
So Artie goes to do this, and I was very much in favor of him doing that. In fact, I wrote a song about it, The Only Living Boy in New York.
Right.
It was about him going down to Mexico to shoot Catch-22.
In the tapestry of American music, few threads shine as brilliantly, or have been pulled as taut, as the partnership between Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel. Like two rivers that once flowed together to create something magnificent, their story is one of convergence, separation, and the powerful currents that eventually brought them back together. Picture this: two childhood friends from Queens, bound by melodies and dreams, who would go on to soundtrack an entire generation's hopes and heartaches. Yet beneath their celestial harmonies lay a fault line that would eventually split them apart for decades, until a moment of raw vulnerability changed everything. This is the story of how Art Garfunkel broke down in tears during a lunch that healed wounds 50 years in the making.
After The Graduate, Artie was understandably excited about being in a movie with very
accomplished
gifted
people.
What was going on in the studio, though, was a real tug of war about taste and how to do it. It wasn't just the movie. It was also, we didn't agree about, we're friends since we were 12 years old, but our musical inclinations are quite different.
It's about the price of fame, the weight of creative differences, and the remarkable power of a simple admission. I wanted to hurt you, and I was wrong. Simon and Garfunkel were like two master craftsmen working with the same precious metal, their voices. But each had radically different visions of what the final sculpture should look like. Their journey began as teenagers called Tom and Jerry, but the folk revival of the 1960s revealed their true calling. When The Sound of Silence transformed from a forgotten track into a phenomenon, they found themselves riding an unexpected wave. Paul Simon, the architect of their sound, often felt overshadowed by Art's soaring voice. Meanwhile, Art struggled with being seen merely as the vessel for Paul's vision, yearning for recognition as a complete artist. The tension peaked when Art's attention turned to Hollywood. His roles in films like Catch-22 weren't just career moves. They were declarations of independence that Paul interpreted as abandonment. Each success paradoxically pushed them further apart. By the time Bridge Over Troubled Water became their crowning achievement, the bridge between the two men had already begun to crumble. When Simon and Garfunkel officially dissolved in 1970, it wasn't with explosive drama, but with quiet finality. They were like former dance partners who knew every step but could no longer find the rhythm together. The decades that followed were marked by occasional reunions that felt more like truces than reconciliations. Their legendary 1981 Central Park concert drew over 500,000 people, but backstage, old tensions simmered. Art's frustration occasionally boiled over in public interviews, questioning Paul's decision to walk away from their success. These outbursts weren't just professional disappointment. They were the cries of someone who felt he'd lost a brother. Paul channeled his emotions into a solo career while carrying the quiet ache of a broken friendship. Like two satellites orbiting the same sun but never quite aligning, they maintained separate trajectories, their paths occasionally crossing but never truly converging. In 2024, fate arrived through the smallest coincidence. Harper Simon, Paul's son, encountered Art Garfunkel in an apartment building hallway where Paul's ex-wife now lived. This chance meeting was like dropping a pebble into still water. Harper, perhaps understanding something about unspoken regrets, suggested a simple lunch between old friends. It was the kind of gesture that seems ordinary until you realize it's anything but. The lunch was arranged casually, but both men must have known they were walking into something far more significant. After decades of silence and hurt feelings, they were finally going to address the elephant that had been sitting in the room since 1970. When two people share as much history as Simon and Garfunkel, conversation can be like walking through a minefield. Every topic has the potential to explode into old grievances. But sometimes, the most dangerous path leads to the most important destination. Art approached the lunch with a direct question that cut through decades of complexity. What happened? Why haven't we seen each other? It was the kind of question that demands honesty, the kind that strips away all pretense and gets to the heart of things. Paul's response was equally direct. He brought up Art's past interviews, the public comments that had stung like open-handed slaps. But instead of anger, Paul's words carried something more powerful: pain. He explained how those words had felt like intentional wounds, how they'd made him question whether Art truly wanted to hurt him. The moment that followed was like watching a dam burst. Art later described it with startling vulnerability, the realization that Paul was right, that somewhere in his frustration and disappointment, he had wanted to cause pain. And with that admission came tears, not just of regret, but of recognition. I burst into tears, Art would later recall, and in that moment, 50 years of accumulated hurt began to wash away. It was the sound of a man finally hearing his own truth and not liking what it revealed, but finding freedom in its honesty. There's something profoundly moving about watching two elderly men, legends in their own right, rediscover the friendship that once defined them. After Art's confession and tears came something even more powerful: Paul's embrace. It was the physical manifestation of forgiveness, the bridge rebuilt in a single gesture. Art described that embrace with the wonder of someone experiencing grace. I can still feel his hug. It's a remarkable thing when a simple human gesture can carry the weight of decades, when arms around shoulders can communicate what years of words could not. The lunch became a turning point not just in their relationship, but in how Art saw himself. He called Paul afterward, telling his own son something that would have seemed impossible just hours earlier. "Paul's my brother. He's family." In the aftermath of their reconciliation, both men seem acutely aware of time's passage and music's permanence. Art, now dealing with vocal issues that have silenced his legendary voice, and Paul, whose hearing loss has affected his touring, understand that their mortal constraints make their renewed connection all the more precious. Their songs, meanwhile, continue to live independent lives in the world. The sound of silence still speaks to new generations discovering isolation and seeking connection. Bridge Over Troubled Water remains a source of comfort for countless listeners navigating their own turbulent waters. Art reflected on this phenomenon with the wisdom of age. The songs have lives of their own. It's a recognition that what they created together transcended their personal struggles, that their harmonies found a permanence that their partnership initially could not. The irony isn't lost on either man. While they were apart, their music was bringing people together. While they nursed their wounds, their songs were healing others. Their greatest creation lived on while its creators learned to live with separation. In reflecting on what made their partnership special, Art revealed something that might surprise fans who focus primarily on their musical achievements. The foundation of Simon and Garfunkel, he explained, wasn't just harmony. It was humor. They were, first and foremost, two friends who made each other laugh. This revelation reframes their entire story. Yes, they were perfectionist artists who created sublime music, but they were also two guys from Queens who shared the same comedy heroes: Lenny Bruce, Mike Nichols, and Elaine May, Mel Brooks. Their connection was built on laughter long before it was built on music. Understanding this foundation makes their reconciliation even more poignant. They didn't just rediscover their creative partnership, they rediscovered the joy that had brought them together in the first place. The music was the house they built, but laughter was the ground it stood on. The story of Simon and Garfunkel's reunion is ultimately about the courage it takes to heal old wounds. Art's willingness to admit his desire to hurt Paul, Paul's grace in accepting that admission, and both men's decision to prioritize their friendship over their grievances. These actions required a particular kind of bravery that only comes with age and wisdom. Their music will outlive them both, continuing to soundtrack moments of beauty and pain for generations yet unborn. But perhaps their most important legacy isn't found in their catalog. It's in the example they've set for forgiveness, for the possibility of redemption even after decades of estrangement. In a world that often seems defined by permanent divisions and irreconcilable differences, Simon and Garfunkel's reunion offers something rare: hope. It suggests that no relationship is beyond repair if both parties are willing to do the hard work of honesty and forgiveness. As art reflected on their renewed friendship, tears of gratitude replacing the tears of regret. We are our oldest friends. In the end, that's what matters most. Not the fame, not the music, not even the decades of success, but the simple, profound truth that some bonds are too deep to break forever. If you enjoyed the video, please help our channel grow and like and subscribe. We hope to see you again soon.